Hey everyone, this is part 14 of our Building with Claude API series. And in this video, we're going to talk about the web search tool. Now, unlike the text edit tool that we saw in our previous video, the web search tool comes with both the schema and the implementation, whereas the text edit tool that we saw previously comes only with schema. This makes it even more convenient to make use of the web search tool with the Claude API. So whenever we ask something to Claude that requires some sort of a web search, let's say we are asking what are the latest developments in quantum computing, if it has access to this web search tool, Claude, based on its intelligence, will decide whether it wants to do some sort of a online search, and then it will do some searches on our behalf on different topics based on what we had asked. The web tool then returns a bunch of search results back to Claude, and Claude then makes use of its intelligence to summarize the results and give us a comprehensive response. The web search tool is super useful, especially because it allows us to find new information that might not be available in the training data of the models that we use. Okay, let's see this in action now. Here we have a Jupyter notebook called 14 where we have the code for this demonstration. The prompt that we want to send Claude is based on the latest information on Indian income tax rules from official sources online. What are the income tax benefits of a self-employed software consultant in India in 2026? Here we see that we want to know the latest information on the Indian income tax rules, okay? And we are explicitly asking it to find this from official sources online. Now the keyword here is online, right? And we are also asking for it for 2026 rules. So we are asking for some latest information on this particular topic. Let's give this to the Claude API and see what response it's going to give us. Okay, here you see is just a regular Claude API call. We are not giving it any tools. The web search tool is also not part of this API. Let's just see the response that we get from this. And here we have the response. So Claude has returned us back a text block, and it says income tax benefits for self-employed software consultants in India 2026. Okay, cool. So that's like the header, right? And when we come to the actual subject, we see it says I should clarify that I don't have real-time internet access to check the absolute latest 2026 updates, but I can share the established benefit structure that typically apply. Okay, so it clearly tells us that it doesn't have access to internet, so it doesn't have the real-time information. So let's change that. Let's provide it internet access by means of including this web search tool. In order to include the tool, all we need to provide is just the web search schema. Now the implementation is already available for us in the Claude API, so we don't need to ourselves create the implementation. So that's convenient. Now let's take this web search schema. Is again just a dictionary. So you need to define the type, which is web search with this date suffix. Now you can get this information from the Claude API documentation. So here when you look at the web search tool docs, you can see the name that they have specified here. So just make use of that. They even provide some examples of how you would use it. So for example, type the web search with that suffix and then the name, the max uses. So that's basically what we're doing here. So here we have type, the web search with that date suffix, and then you have the name, which is web search. And we also are providing maximum uses. Okay, so we are telling it that you can do 5 web searches at the max. Okay, now let's provide the schema to the API. We just need to add the tools argument and include the schema that we have defined. Now with this, let's run and see what response we get. And there you have it. Because Claude API has internet access, we see a lot more response that has come back to us. It might look a bit overwhelming. So what we'll do is we'll just copy the entire response and paste it in a new VS Code file. Okay, and you can see that the response was actually just 10 lines. Here we are not folding the lines. You can fold it in VS Code by using the hotkey Alt Z. So when you fold it, you see that it's like pretty big, but I'm just not folding. So that means we just got 10 lines as response, and we can see a couple of new blocks that have been used. Okay, we are already familiar with the text block, which basically contains the text that gets generated. Here we see these two new blocks. One is the server tool use block and the other is the web search tool result block. Okay, the server tool use block is the block that contains the query that Claude API sends to the web search engine server. Okay, so you can even see this. I'll just copy this line and paste it in another file, and here we'll fold the lines and see. So it's quite simple, right? So here the server tool use block is sending this query of Indian income tax benefits self-employed software consultant 2026. So this is exactly the query that it has sent to the web search engine. Okay, it's as if we open Google and pasted that query to search and get some results. It's just that Claude is doing it on our behalf. We don't know exactly whether if it's using Google for its search engine, but it is just using this web search tool which is searching the internet based on the query that is provided. Okay, so that's the first query that gets sent to the web search tool, and then we can see that it does a second search as well. So here let's copy this and see what's going on over here, and you can see this is the second query that it has sent. So it says India income tax rules software consultant deductions 2026. So it's done two searches. So the first search was for benefits and the second search was for rules. Okay, so these are the two searches that it has done, and then we see the web search tool result block. So this block contains the result that we get from the internet. We can see that this line is pretty long. It has actually about some 18,000 characters, and the other search result was about 21,000 characters long. And these blocks will actually contain the result that it got from the internet. And we have a bunch of text blocks which it generates based on the response it got from the internet. So for example, this first text block says, based on the latest information from the official sources, here are the key income tax benefits for a self-employed software consultant in India. So this is like the header that it has generated, and then you will have a bunch of other responses. Now the cool thing about the text blocks that we get over here is it even has these citations that are quite useful. So the first block, which was just header block, doesn't have any citations, it says like none, but the next one has a bit of citation. So let's look at this block. So I'll open this over here, and we can see that this block is quite long, right? So it's got a bunch of things. So here this got this citations block, so it will tell you for exactly from where it has generated this response. You will be able to even find the URL. So for example, here you can see that it has got this information from a website called Legal Rasta. This is basically how it makes use of the web search tool. It makes use of the server tool use block to send the queries to the web search, and then the results it gets by means of this web search tool result block, and based on the results that it receives, it creates the text block, and it also gives us these citations based on which it had decided that this is the response that it's supposed to give. So this is quite useful. Now the thing is, over here you'll be able to see all these different web pages. If you search for like URL over here, you can see that it was searched all these different websites. Like over here it's searched a website called Tax to Win, and then here another website called Lexology, and the kpmcollp.com, and over here Canara SBC Life, and over here Xflow Pay. It basically searched a bunch of different URLs to arrive at this response. What if we want to control the domains where it actually looks for its sources? We can actually do that, especially if we know what kind of prompts will be given to our app. We can actually have this list of allowed domains that Claude API would search to give us the response. The way we do that is by means of adding a new key value pair called allowed domains. And over here, what we will do is, we know that in India, the official income tax website is incometax.gov.in. All right. So we'll just take this domain name and give that as the source which Claude should use to give us the response. With this now, let's run the API call and see what kind of response we get. Okay. And here we have it. So we see the final text blocks that got generated, and they are all citing from the incometax.gov.in website. So that's really useful, right? We can even see not just for the final response where it creates these citations, but even in all the different web results that it received, right? Throughout, the incometax.gov.in website was always used, because we had specifically mentioned in the web search schema that the allowed domain names is only the incometax.gov.in. We can include additional websites based on what we are doing, but this feature itself is pretty powerful, especially when you're building these custom apps where you know what type of prompts are going to be entered, and if you want to ensure that Claude API only looks up these certain domains for its sources, this is a handy way to gatekeep that. So yes, this is basically the web search tool that we could make use of along with the Claude API. Hope this video was useful, and follow along if you're exploring AI for your workflows.